Watching someone you know get rich doesn't motivate you. It physically hurts you, not metaphorically. Your brain processes it through the same neural circuitry it uses when something strikes your body. The pain is real, measurable, and it is quietly reshaping every decision you make without you ever realizing it. Scientists have known for decades that the brain has a dedicated threat detection system, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. Its entire job is to scan the world for danger and fire an alarm. A car swerving toward you, a shadow moving in a dark alley. That system keeps you alive, but evolution never anticipated a world where someone in your office would post a photo of their new house on a Tuesday afternoon. When researchers at the California Institute of Technology ran subjects through fMRI machines and showed them images of peers receiving financial windfalls, the amygdala lit up with the same intensity as it did for images of physical threats. Not mild discomfort, not vague unease, full threat response. Your brain, at the hardware level, treats a colleague's promotion the same way it treats a fist coming at your face. But the story gets stranger. The prefrontal cortex, the rational reasoning part of your brain, doesn't just fail to calm this response, it actively gets recruited to justify it. You start building a case. He got lucky. She had connections. The system is rigged. This isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, rationalizing a threat response so the alarm can stay on without exhausting you. This mechanism has a name in neuroscience. It falls under the broader umbrella of social pain processing. And the critical insight is that social pain and physical pain share neural real estate. The same regions, the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, activate for both. This is why heartbreak genuinely feels like chest pain, and it is why watching a peer get wealthy can leave you drained and irritable for hours without you being able to explain why. The brain has a second system layered on top of this. Neuroscientists call it the social comparison circuit, and it runs almost continuously in the background. Humans are not wired to evaluate their situation in absolute terms. We are wired to evaluate it relative to the people immediately around us. You don't just ask, "Am I okay?" You ask, "Am I okay compared to them?" And that question running on a loop is where the damage accumulates. Here is what makes this uniquely modern and uniquely catastrophic. For most of human history, your comparison group was small, maybe 150 people in your village. You knew everyone who was doing better than you, and the gap was rarely vast. Today, your comparison group is effectively unlimited. Social media hands your brain a continuous feed of financial wins from thousands of people simultaneously. Your threat system was not built for this volume. It is running an emergency response protocol around the clock. The cortisol data is alarming. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone, and chronic exposure to it degrades the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory and learning. Studies tracking cortisol levels in people who spend significant time on social platforms show elevation patterns similar to those seen in people dealing with chronic workplace conflict. Your body is running a low-grade emergency, and low-grade emergencies, sustained long enough, become illness. But the most insidious effect isn't the stress, it's the paralysis. When the amygdala fires and labels something a threat, the brain shifts resources, blood flow changes, attention narrows, and crucially, the appetite for risk collapses. The same part of you that would normally say, "Let's try something new," goes quiet, because the threat system is already consuming the mental bandwidth that ambition runs on. The person who should be your inspiration becomes the neurological reason you don't start. Researchers call this effect self-threat inhibition. When your sense of self is threatened by a social comparison, the brain does not respond by upgrading its strategy. It responds by protecting what you already have. You become more conservative, more defensive. You find reasons to stay still. The wealth you see in someone else's hands doesn't light a fire under you. It quietly convinces your nervous system that moving is dangerous. There is a specific wrinkle that makes this worse for people who are close to the person getting rich. Neuroscientists call it the relative deprivation amplifier. The closer the relationship, the more the brain interprets the gap as evidence of your own failure rather than their success. A billionaire on television doesn't trigger the full threat response. they exist in a different category. But a cousin, a former classmate, a neighbor, they were running the same race, and suddenly they are not. The brain even has a word for the pleasure that runs in opposition to this pain. Schadenfreude, the satisfaction at another's misfortune, activates the brain's reward system, the nucleus accumbens, the same region that responds to food and sex. When someone who was ahead of you stumbles, your brain doesn't just register it neutrally, it rewards you for it. It gives you a small hit of dopamine, which means your nervous system has a vested interest in the people around you failing. Think about what that means structurally. Your own brain, the organ running your life, is chemically incentivized to want your peers to stay down. Not because you are a bad person, but because the comparison circuit is protecting your relative position. This is the machinery underneath 1,000 petty resentments, 1,000 quietly sabotaged friendships, 1,000 moments where you felt happy about something you knew you shouldn't be happy about. So what, if anything, can interrupt this cycle? The research points to one intervention more than any other: psychological distance combined with deliberate reframing. When you can mentally categorize someone's success as belonging to a different domain, they're in a different field, they took risks you chose not to take, they're playing a different game. The amygdala's threat response weakens measurably. The brain needs permission to stand down, and reframing provides it. There is also compelling data on what neuroscientists call above-the-self thinking, focusing on a goal or mission larger than your own social standing. When subjects were primed to think about contribution rather than competition, activity in the threat comparison circuits dropped, and activity in the prefrontal cortex increased. In plain language, purpose is not just motivational language. It is a neurological circuit breaker for the envy system. And awareness itself changes things. Simply knowing that your threat response has been hijacked by a comparison signal, that the sensation you're experiencing isn't a rational warning but an evolutionary misfiring, gives the prefrontal cortex something to work with. The brain can regulate what it can name, which is perhaps the most useful thing you can take from any of this. The pain you feel when someone near you gets rich is not a message about your future. It is an ancient alarm going off in a world it was never built for.